Hi, it's Jackie here from the LGFA. We're on another call today, looking back on some of last weekend's action and looking ahead to what is a critical weekend in the TG4 Championships. Very happy to be joined by three former inter-county playing stars. Michelle Ryan from Waterford is on the top left-hand side of my screen. Denise Masterson from Dublin, bottom left. And Cahill Morgan from Armagh, bottom right. Ladies, good evening. Good to have you on board again. This is becoming a nice little arrangement that we have on a weekly basis, so good to see you. Where will we start? We'll start with Monaghan and Tipperary last Friday night. Michelle, you were at this one. Correct me if I'm wrong. On the touchline you were. I saw you on the screen. Friday night football, Michelle, has been incredibly popular, and this was another good game.
It was, and you know what, I think it's actually been a bit of a genius idea on behalf of the Ladies Gaelic, because there is so much sport being crammed into the weekends that there is maybe that little gap that's appeared there on the Friday evening, and I think it means more people are tuning into the games that are there on telly then on Friday evening. But like the weekend before it, we had a very, very hotly contested game between Monaghan and Tipperary, to say the least. Both, on the pitch and off the pitch, I think, to be honest. But look, it was thoroughly entertaining. It was full of free-flowing football, some fantastic scores. I mean, if we were worried at all that Monaghan were going to be rusty coming into the second weekend, that was quickly dispelled in the first few minutes. I mean, they got off to such a fantastic start. Some of the scores there was a pace to their game that I hadn't anticipated, and I think we were all maybe had a few questions based on the Monaghan of last year. But then again, that's 18 months ago. But we know they were going through a rebuilding process, and obviously had just about escaped relegation last year. But to see the progress they've made in that 18 months has been absolutely fantastic, and they really took the game to Tipperary right from the start, and Tipperary had to work very hard to put scores over. Now Tipperary were back in it by half time, and it made a very interesting second half, and not to mind a very interesting last few minutes. But yeah, it was a thoroughly entertaining game. I think on the whole, for this performance, for the whole 60 minutes, Monaghan probably did deserve it. And as a team performance goes, there was so many players that did to stand up. I mean, 9 players scored for Monaghan, which is a fantastic return from any team.
Yeah, it was a cracker. It was an absolute cracker, and another great advertisement for Friday night football. And then there was more action over the weekend, and we'll come back to the upshot of that victory for Monaghan, Michelle, which is that they go into a winner-takes-all clash effectively with Galway at the weekend. Akiva, I'm sure a game you were keeping a close eye on was Tyrone against Mayo, and we did chat a couple of weeks ago about we were excited to see what Mayo would bring to the table. Well, Sarah Rowe came with 2-9 to the table, and Mayo came with 4-17, so it was a pretty impressive opening performance from Mayo, Akiva.
Yeah, I was sitting quite sadly making notes on that match just to see what the crack was. 4-17 from Mayo to 0-4. Now I'm sure Tyrone, it was obvious to see they were a bit despondent. They had those 2 difficult games against Armagh. It was going to be interesting to see what they would actually do. But it took Mayo to the 17th minute, really to take command of the game. They made a lot of silly mistakes and things. I'm obviously looking at it from an Armagh perspective, but Tyrone they worked hard at times, but Mayo just had a different class altogether. They played with such fluency, running off the shoulder. Like, Grace was just a delight to watch.
Sarah Rowe.
Sarah Rowe was such a delight to watch. She was amazing, really, really fantastic. And such leaders for the team there. Armagh will have to work very, very hard. And I know, I haven't spoken to Peter Leahy after we played them last year. Such a gentleman, a great man. He has things, going to Mayo fantastically. They play for him so well, and he will have his homework done on Armagh. So, it'll be very, very difficult. But there's, a lot of wee things there that Armagh can expose, and Armagh are going well. So from my perspective, I thought, yeah, it'll be another really, really good match, And as Michelle said there, I was delighted to watch that Monaghan game, because I was so excited about watching a game on a Friday night, which I agree with. I think it's brilliant. And I think that, for Ulster football, for Monaghan to put on that performance is great altogether.
Yeah, there's been some good signs from Monaghan over the last couple of years, particularly at underage level, and getting to an A minor final as well last year. Akiva, that things might be on the on the revival in Monaghan. Keep just looking at Mayo. So Mayo put 4-17 past Tyrone, and Armagh put 6-16 past Tyrone. Obviously, Tyrone scored more against Armagh than they did against Mayo. But just looking at those rough numbers, 4-17 and 6-16 would suggest that the scoring potential of both teams is incredibly high. Maybe and we spoke about the concession. I asked you last week, were you a little bit worried about the concession of scores in that Tyrone game? I suppose following a direct line of form, Mayo might just be the slight favourites against Armagh. A game at Parnell Park on Saturday, 3:15 p.m. live on TG4. How are you reading it, Kiva? Look, you have the Armagh hat on always, of course, but taking it off for a second and looking clinically at it, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, look, that's what I was doing. I was looking at what they have conceded and what the scores have been racked up. It lends for a fantastic shootout. It really, really does. There's Amy Mackin back now for Armagh that wasn't there the last time. So that'll be a big thing how Mayo will deal with that. Aoife McCoy's playing really well. They have, Armagh have forwards that all scored the last day out against Tyrone. So that'll be something that Peter Leahy will look at. It's going to be a very tight game, I think, because Armagh are in a position now where they have better forwards, I think, than they ever had, that are playing very well together. Mayo have always had those good forwards, and they're playing very well together and had a really, really good game against Tyrone. But it's so hard to gauge because Tyrone would have been on a bit of a downer, I would say. And I was looking at it from an Armagh perspective, and Mayo had, made a lot of mistakes, and they will want to tighten up on things. Like, they're shooting, whereas they did rack up really good scores, they missed an awful lot as well. So it's going to be very tight to call. I hope Armagh, but I think it's going to be another brilliant game, which is great for the LGFA.
Yeah, so it's class, I have to say. I admire your diligence, Kiva. You've handwritten notes. I'm just looking at an iPhone here, out of shot. So that's all the state secrets out of the way. Denise, how are you? Dublin 17 points, Waterford 110. And I'll touch on to this game with you as well. Michelle, Waterford obviously gave a great account of themselves. Denise, was it, you talked last week, I think, about Dublin just being a little bit streetwise. Was that what maybe got them over the line in this one?
Oh, yeah, I think again, probably, Jackie. I mean, I thought the sin bins kind of affected the game, and at the start of the second half, I mean, I think Waterford had Dublin pinned in for maybe 6 or 7 minutes at the start of the second half, but they didn't get any scores from it, and Dublin did very well to hold tight back there, and the difference was the scores maybe just came a bit easier to Dublin. I was very impressed with Orla Nolan in the full back line for Dublin as well.
Yeah.
But that really, for me, when Waterford had them pinned in for those, I think it was about 7-8 minutes, the ball didn't really come out of the half and they didn't score. I kind of thought that it was going to be game over for Waterford then, because with all the possession they had, if they couldn't convert it, I think Dublin were always going to kick on, and when they were back to their full strength 15 on the pitch, I just thought it was going to be. I mean, I think Dublin, again, I think they've lots to improve on, but I just think the slickness with which they move the ball when they do move it fast, and then the quality they have on their forward line to finish it. I mean, again, they have number scorers, and for me, again, Lindsay Davey is just crucial in the running of that Dublin team. I just think the work she puts in all over the pitch. I mean, Fennellan, I thought Wall actually had a good game for Waterford as well. I mean, I thought they gave a great account of themselves, very competitive. But like I said, for me, that was a real turning point in the game when they had so much possession and they just didn't convert at all from it,
Denise, just that Dublin strength and depth as well. It was great to see Nicole Owens back and togged out and fitting well again. And you mentioned Orla Nolan there. I mean, Ava Rutledge came in last year at right corner back and was absolutely sensational all season. A converted forward in many ways. So Ava's not available at the moment. She's carrying a knock. And then in comes Orla Nolan, as you referenced there, and does a tremendous job. That's the secret of a panel, really, isn't it?
And the same, Lucy Collins came into the middle of the park, a nice score as well, settled the team another bit. Everybody they brought in contributed and, kind of knew where they were slotting in their role, and that's huge. I mean, like, I hadn't seen Orla Nolan play championship football before with Dublin like that, and I really was impressed with her exactly the same way I felt about Ava Rutledge last year, and even going forward with Ava Rutledge, I mean, I thought, against Cork and Croke Park last year in the semi-final, like, this was a huge test for her. My God, like, she just stood up to it, and I just felt the same about Orla Nolan, like, that really, obviously the in-house games are highly competitive if they can come in championship games that are, helter-skelter, and they just stand their ground, like, they don't waver. So it's very impressive, and I suppose you know, if Dublin have that strong a squad with players that they can pull in, because I also thought maybe injuries might be an issue with the games coming hard and fast. And I think Aisling Maloney maybe picked up a knock, and maybe that affected her with Tipperary. And, you know, I think when you have that strength and depth in the panel, like, it's a huge advantage when the season is being played over such a short period of time.
Michelle, we wondered last week if Waterford could close that gap that existed last year between the teams, but they most certainly did. What were your thoughts on the Waterford performance?
To be honest, Jackie, I think they gave an absolutely excellent account of themselves, and I think they were probably in a nice position preparing for it and going into it, because nobody was probably expecting too much from them going in against the All-Ireland champions. And considering the last, let's say, notable performance or match against Dublin, we would have been comprehensively bet. So it was kind of a nice, quiet preparation, I would say, with most people focusing on Dublin. So that was a nice preparation for them. Obviously, people could see in the team that lined out for Waterford last day, there was a few notable players missing who would have had a lot of experience, the likes of Caoimhe Morgan and Maria Delhunty, probably the main free taker for Waterford for the last number of years.
Yeah.
So while there were maybe a few experienced heads missing, and yeah, I agree with Denise that, you know, there was a lot of times for Waterford where they had really pushed on and they'd really put it up to Dublin, but they lacked maybe or didn't take some scoring chances that presented themselves. And there was one or two probably crucial ones there, maybe times that they could have leveled a match after putting on some intense pressure on Dublin. So the players that I mentioned, probably the experience that was missing from them probably did show through in certain areas. But I have to say, I mean, Waterford has some fantastic fast-paced players. With the likes of Aileen Wall, the likes of Roisin Tobin, who has now moved kind of further into the forwards. Her pace is fantastic. And also the Murray triplets. So you have, and Chloe Fennell herself, they actually have fantastic pace. Karen McGrath dictates that backline, and she's an absolutely outstanding footballer. It's hard to defend against Dublin, it is, because the pace with which they run off the shoulder and support each other, and there's a threat coming from every angle. So I thought they coped relatively well with the threats that Dublin posed. As to whether Dublin maybe, I'm not saying they would have taken Waterford for granted, but maybe, I don't know, did they just expect that Waterford would have put it up to them for as long as they did within that match. But I think obviously the strength and depth that Dublin had and the experience that they had, they were probably always going to pull away at some stage. But I don't think they found it as easy as maybe people might have thought they would.
Yeah, absolutely. It was tense right up to the end. Michelle, I'll stay with you for a sec, because there was two Munster teams in action, obviously Cork and Kerry. One goal separated them at the end. A kind of a clinical finish that you come to expect now from Saoirse Noonan. I think I've talked about this girl before. Saw her at minor level, just a sensational finisher. Real, you know, that's those soccer traits are evident in the way she finishes. At Kerry, again, they got off to that start, and after a while you were wondering, right, what have Cork got here? But and I guess the game that Kerry had would have stood to them considerably as well. But they seem to run out of a little bit of gas, and Cork, maybe, I mentioned the word streetwise, that those experienced heads saw them over the line in the end.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Kerry, in fairness, came into it having had the win the previous week, so they knew, I suppose, they kind of had one leg almost in a semi-final, having that first victory. So they were going in with high hopes, high confidence, and they did start excellently well. They really did. They put it up to Cork. They had a game plan that they were really sticking to and managing. They were putting in a huge amount of pressure on the Cork kickouts and forcing, you know, errors from that, which was something we don't get to see that often when it comes to Cork playing. So they really were doing very well. Their attack, I have to say, Louise Murray-Hertig, and I have to specially mention Hannah O'Donoghue, because I know she didn't get on the scoreboard, but the amount of work that girl got through to, first of all, win the ball, to create opportunities for others, to provide options for others off the shoulder, I thought she was absolutely immense. Louise, again, herself was absolutely incredible as well. She just was absolutely on form from start to finish. Her finishing, her free taking, the Cork backs did really struggle to get to grips with them for long periods of that game. And I don't think there's too much more that inside forward line could really have done to pull it out even more. If from a Cork perspective, I thought some of the notable we'll say, experienced players were a little bit quiet in the first half. I thought they struggled, and Aoife, I think, said it himself after the game, there was a little bit of rustiness there to kind of pull it all together. Obviously, Saoirse got off to a fantastic start, getting 1-1 at the start of the first half, and I suppose aptly finished off the game with that soccer skills.
Great score.
Coming up to it. Absolutely. I mean, and then obviously her congratulations to her in her news this week being selected as part of the
Absolutely.
team. See why. But I think there was a large portion of that first half where Cork struggled to come to terms with the pressure that Kerry were applying and the threat that Kerry were showing. But you're dead right. Second half, we'll say the O'Sullivans really came into the game for Cork, especially around midfield. They came in for the game for Cork, and they really were putting on a lot more pressure on the Kerry defence, which was holding up well at times. But I think a lot of frees also were conceded, giving opportunities for Cork to pull ahead. And Kerry, I just didn't think had enough gas in the end in the second half, to be honest. Now, having said that, it was a fantastic. They were absolutely heartbroken after the game. They really had put absolutely everything into it. But I do think it was more or less Cork's experience that kind of pulled them through. I wouldn't say it was a fantastic Cork performance by any stretch, and I don't think Efi would admit that himself either. But there's a lot to work on, I'd say, from his perspective, based on his words after the match. But again, it was experience that kind of pulled them through.
Yeah, absolutely. So Saoirse Noonan then went on and scored 2 goals for Cork City on Sunday. So that was 3-2 for her over the weekend, and then an international call-up during the week. So well done and congratulations to Saoirse. So looking ahead to the weekend, folks, we've Donegal and Waterford, which is effectively a dead rubber. And then we have Armagh and Mayo, which we've discussed, which is live on TG4. All of the other games are live on our various channels over the weekend. So I'll just take you through them very quickly. Donegal Waterford is live on our Facebook. As I say, Armagh Mayo is TG4. On Sunday, Cavan Cork is live on Facebook. Galway Monaghan is live on Facebook. Kildare Laois is on our Facebook. Clare and Sligo is on channel Clare YouTube channel. Offaly Roscommon, MMC streaming Facebook. Loud Westmeath is live on Facebook, and Down Leitrim is live on the Sporting Limerick Facebook page, so you can check out all of the action there. A quick look, Kiva, at Galway Monaghan. So if you look at, again, following that line of form, Monaghan beat Tip by a point, Galway beat Tip by a point, and now it's Galway Monaghan. So how are you reading this one?
Oh, it's so exciting. I just think I just can't contain myself with excitement of this. I don't know. I am not a betting woman, obviously. I suppose if I had been, if I had been thinking about this beforehand, like way beforehand, I'd have been saying, probably Galway, and we talked about them maybe being the white horse or whatever. You can't call anything. And if I was any county team at the minute, I would just be saying, we give it everything, because you don't know where this is going to go. Like, Monaghan have just come out all guns blazing. It's brilliant to see, likes of players like Alan McCarron who are back. Cora Courtney's playing fantastic. Laura McEnany, people stepped up there, and, it didn't seem to faze them. It wasn't like it was unnatural to them. They seemed really comfortable at doing it. If I was Galway, I would be worried. I wouldn't, maybe they would have been thinking, this is going to be okay, because last year Monaghan weren't really in a good place at all, and I didn't know where they were at, really, to be honest. And as Michelle said, they have got it together, and Monaghan teams of old are to be feared, and I think they've got a bit of a bite. Yes, Galway have a great setup though too. Let's not, what's great about this championship is the gap has narrowed so much, so teams are so much closer, which is great for ladies football, great for the neutral, great for anyone watching. So, Galway have classy players there, and will have the advantage of having watched the match and had a good match under their belt against Tip, and they'll have put in good training and be analysing there. So, the betting woman that I am, I just don't know.
Good answer. Yeah, absolutely. I just love watching. I love the way Monaghan attacked that game last week. Ellen McCarron is a wand of a left foot. Cora Courtney is just run all day for you, and then you have Ciara still producing the goods inside as well. They're a nice outfit, a really, really nice outfit. So you're hedging your bets on that one, Kiva. That's fine.
I'm going to say Monaghan.
Okay, the little bit of Ulster loyalty in there. All right, that's fine. Denise, Donegal Waterford. So they have effectively nothing to play for. How do you get yourself up for a game like this? Do you say to yourself, look, we've come this far, it's been a strange year, let's finish it off in style and go and express ourselves? The pressure's off to an extent. It could be a really, really good match.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll be a very competitive game, but there's no two ways about it. They're not getting themselves G'd up for a knockout game. They're not getting themselves G'd up for progressing anywhere in the championship, I suppose what they can get themselves G'd up for, it's the last game they're going to play as a team competitively in this season. Do you know what I mean? It was short and they'll want to get the most out of it and be thankful that they're out playing a match. But and I mean, there'll be the competitiveness that you have within a training match, because these are, elite athletes, and everything they do, they're probably competitive in doing. So I've no doubt that the game will be competitive, but it is going to lack the edge maybe, and maybe not, when two teams have nothing to lose and everything to kind of play for. I'm sure it'll be maybe a bit more open. I'm sure they'll enjoy it a lot, but like that, I it's not going to have the intensity for us as a spectator either. I suppose the fact that the result doesn't really matter. I mean, I think the Galway game, like we said, I feel kind of the same. Like, I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I would probably just tip Galway just to balance the scales there. But yeah, I mean, with regard to Donegal and Waterford, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Michelle could tell us otherwise about what it might mean to Waterford to come out with the win. I mean, obviously they'll want to finish with a win, but yeah, I mean, it just doesn't have that kind of, the way Keith was so excited there about Galway and Monaghan. The Donegal game just doesn't have that for me, really, But it'll be interesting to see, and I probably might, Michelle, tip Donegal there as well.
Yeah, Michelle, it's a nice little segue over to you on that. I mean, if you're in that Waterford dressing room on at the weekend, or indeed on Saturday, or you're in that Donegal dressing room, I mean, what are you saying to each other in there? I mean, look, I know you took immense pride anytime you pulled on that county shirt, and I guess when all of those girls are in that dressing room together at the weekend, they might look around and say, girls, as a bunch, as a group, this might be the last time we're ever together in a county dressing room, because of the fluidity of panels and they change year on year. Are those the key messages you've got to get out ahead of a game like that?
I think they are, Jackie, to be honest, and I think they're. When you go into a dressing room like that, in a fixture like that, where like we're saying, it's kind of a dead rubber game, especially in the year that's in it, you have to kind of take in the bigger picture, and there has to be a focus for the management and the whole panel on the bigger picture. It is a championship game. While neither of them can progress, each team can make progression in their own, within themselves. Sure. I know for the Waterford perspective, even though I mentioned some girls that are missing this year, there's no guarantee they'll be missing next year, but also there are some new girls after being brought into the panel as well, which have actually got some championship game time now in the last week, so that's valuable. And to bear in mind that normally of a regular year, teams in the, I suppose, middle to the end of November would be starting to get kind of coming back together and starting training plans, whether they're individual or collective. So you've already made that head start, and it's kind of even a preparation leading into the league season next year. So you can actually start setting your goals now for what you want to achieve over the next 3 or 4 months, and lay down a marker as to how we're progressing and what do we need to work on, and you kind of get a little bit of a head start, kind of game preparation coming into this weekend for those few months ahead. So look, I think, and I've no doubt that the Waterford management will be looking at that from that kind of perspective. I know Donegal were absolutely devastated to lose the match to Dublin that day, and it was a hugely competitive game. Anyone could have came out in the end as winners. But they've had an extra weekend there now to kind of regroup after that and hopefully refocus and see what they can get out of this weekend moving forward. Yeah,
and I suppose the old saying, you're only as good as your last game. Everyone would want to go out and perform in some shape or form, so it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Kiva, back to yourself with the Ulster interest in this one, obviously, as well. Cavan against Cork. Cavan were well beaten by Kerry. Cork have beaten Kerry. We always look for that line of form again. Is this one of those that you can say with some degree of certainty that Cork are going to win it, or do Cavan have a shout here?
Well, I don't want James Daly to kill me, so I'm not.
Old friends, of course, yeah.
Well, to be honest, Cavan are still going to be preparing for an Ulster Championship, so they will have a point to prove. They're still in the Ulster Championship, so they'll be wanting to maybe, see what players have to give. I know they had, the issue with some people were isolating for a while, and that's why they weren't able to put enough squad. So, maybe hopefully that's all sorted now, and they'll be able to maybe work on, preparing for Ulster Championship. And as Michelle said, the league, it's a great pre-season. Everyone prefers to be playing competitive football than out dogged training. So, you can show yourself on the pitch no matter, when it is, but playing a match is the best place to show it. And everyone wants to play the best kind of teams. So Cork is one of the best to play, and you can put your stall out there, and it would be a real message to send to, the likes of Armagh and, those that are still left in the championship for Ulster here. So yeah, Monaghan will be looking at it keenly too. So it'll be a good gauger because we haven't seen enough from Cavan, with the full strength squad. So it'll be a really interesting one, I would say.
Yeah, looking forward to all of the action over the weekend. A quick dip into the intermediate championship, still some sorting out to be done here. Looking through the fixtures, Kildare, Laois and Clare and Sligo are both games in Group 4. Kildare Laois looks to be a really pivotal game there in terms of if Kildare win, they'll top the group on 9 points. And a Laois victory there could open it up. Clare and Sligo then will be hoping, Clare particularly will be hoping to get the result against Sligo to keep themselves in the running. One that's looking particularly interesting, Denise, from that Leinster aspect that we've talked about in recent times is Louth and Westmeath, which is that straight shootout for a semi-final place. Donaghmore Ashbourne on Sunday. Again, look, if you look at that line of form that we're talking about, Westmeath beat Longford pretty well. Louth beat Longford. I suppose Louth junior champions last year. Westmeath came down from senior. Is there a little gap there, or will Louth quietly fancy their chances against this Westmeath team? Denise, what are your reflections on it?
Oh, Louth have to fancy their chances. Sure, you wouldn't go into a game any other way, and I think this year has thrown out all sorts of results that make everyone think it's really the year where we realise how, how surprising sport can be, that kind of way. So Louth, of course, are going to back themselves and fancy their chances. But no, if I was to look at it very logically and not with, the heart and soul of it, I would think Westmeath will beat them, and, we said at the start of this that we thought 3 Leinster teams would do well, and Meath have already qualified, which is brilliant. And now we have Westmeath, hopefully, will do it against Louth. I think they will. And then if Kildare win, it's in their hands as well, so that would be a super for Leinster football for the 3 teams to go through. But I mean, you never know on the day. She's more so than ever after what we watched last weekend. But no, I do. I fancy Westmeath. I mean, I think Louth again will give a good account of themselves. I think all of these games have been, competitive, and I think this will be even more so because there's so much to play for now. But I don't see Louth overcoming Westmeath over the weekend. Okay,
it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. The other games down in Leitrim is effectively a dead rubber as Meath have come out of that group. Offaly Roscommon. Roscommon will be fancied there, I guess, to come out of that Group 1. So you're looking at potentially Kildare, Roscommon, Westmeath and Meath in that last 4. Michelle, and after coming out of the intermediate ranks, and you know how difficult it is to get out of it, and Meath have lost the last 2 finals, but appear to be a much improved outfit in round 2, in their round 2 game. But look, these are very early signs. We haven't even hit the semi-final stages there. But who's shaping up well in that intermediate grade from what you can gather so far and what you've seen perhaps on some of the streams?
Well, like you said, we probably would have expected the likes of Meath, likes of Westmeath, and I suppose I think Roscommon as well, having been in the intermediate semi-final against Tipperary last year, and they gave a good account of themselves. So I think it was always going to be that Group 4 that we would have been looking at to kind of who would take that final spot. And it has proved very competitive, and there are some very competitive teams in there. I did personally think that Kildare were probably just going to shade it that little bit, and they seem to be they've done excellently well so far now. The likes of the Laois and Clare, as I said, are a very competitive team. Laois have been performing very, very well this year. I think Sligo surprised me. I mean, it was a fairly comprehensive win for Kildare over Sligo there last weekend. I suppose it just shows the upward curve that Kildare are on, and obviously Sligo maybe in a slightly different trajectory this year. So I think Kildare for me are kind of standing out as the ones that are kind of building, and probably seeing as we wouldn't have seen them over the last 12 months to reach these stages. I think they were showing signs in the league at the start of the year when they qualified for the latter stages of the league that they had obviously started very well. And obviously have managed to maintain that throughout the lockdown, throughout the time on when the championship was off, and have started championship very, very well, and obviously progressed. So I just have to say, well done to them on that, and they seem to be looking good. So to me, it's looking like at the minute, Kildare, Meath, Westmeath, and I think I'd be tipping probably Roscommon in that other group.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that group, Wexford just top on score difference, but Roscommon have that game in hand, and that's against Offaly. Westmeath are plus 24, Louth are plus 9, but it's coming down to that straight shootout. Meath already through. Kildare top of the table on 6 with plus 26. Then you have Clare on 3 points and Laois on 3 points, both on plus 7 score difference. So it's an interesting final day that lies in store. And then in the Junior Championship, Wicklow, Fermanagh, Limerick and Antrim are safely through to the semi-finals. So, folks, just to wrap up, Keith, I'll go back to you. What are you looking forward to most at the weekend? I know you're very excited about Galway, Monaghan, but obviously Armagh Mayo is a standout game from your point of view as well. And there's a lot to look forward to.
It's so exciting, yeah. Santa Christmas here.
It's cracking. It's absolutely cracking. And we've another fan wall as well. So I think maybe with the tension that's involved, you can take the day off from the fan wall, right? So I think we have a few more families as well lined up.
Did a great job, Caoimhe.
Yeah, I mean the fan. Just in, I suppose, just to shoot the breeze for a couple of minutes. We're looking at figures coming in. Michelle from the TG4 Friday night games, and the viewing figures are up significantly on last year, right across the board. The streams, I think, last glance I took at the Dublin game last weekend, there was 18,000 views on it. It's just, I think we chatted previously about how perhaps, all right, COVID came and it shut down games, but in another way, it's given people the chance, and it's given us the chance to showcase matches. And if you can't be there, well, look, we have it to watch. Look, hopefully, we hope everyone is back watching games as soon as possible. But just your overall thoughts on being involved, Michelle, behind the camera as well. What has it been like in your overall reflection so far as we hurtle towards the knockout stages now?
Yeah, look, it's been great. It really has, and I suppose it takes on even a new significance this year because you don't have the fans there. You know that, like, every ladies football team in the country has their diehard followers, and in some counties that's a smaller group than others. But they're always there every day, no matter whether it's rain, hail, sun, or shine, snow. They're always there, and for them not to be able to go is a massive deal. These are obviously very close family members of players or friends. And there's probably that extra significance now to having that coverage and to being part of that and presenting that to everybody, because you know that there's so many people now tuned in who would definitely been there, but also probably a lot of others who are just glad to have that exposure to sport now, especially in the times that we've been living in. I think myself personally, I wasn't sure even at the start of the whole championship thing whether we'd last to the latter stages, and hopefully we still will, whether it was the right thing to do either, because obviously there's a whole lot of range of things you have to take into consideration for players and so on. But now being in the middle of it, isn't it great to have it? And it's providing such a huge entertainment and solace to all of us who are into sport anyway, and to the players themselves. I mean, it obviously things are put in place to make sure that they're safe, and that's the main thing. And they're really front and center of what's going on in Ireland in the middle of winter in November and December. Be they men or ladies, to be honest. I think one of the best things to have come out of this is the huge amount of coverage, be it streaming or be it live. And I hope that that's something that will continue even after we've come out of this.
Yeah.
Because the more exposure people are getting and players are getting to this, I mean, you can see club games, you can see junior games, intermediate games, senior games, all in the one go in the one weekend. It's hard to actually find the time to watch them all and catch up on them all, to be honest. But what a great problem to have. What a great problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the 20 by 20 slogan said, if she can't see it, she can't be it. Denise, it would be a fairly grim winter without sport, I think. So as Michelle says, let's be thankful we have it.
Yeah, I also think how compact it is, and that you're kind of being hit every week. Like, I mean, every week there's a game that you're really looking forward to seeing. It kind of, I don't know if it makes you feel more a part of it. Sometimes when there's a 3-week gap, or, you're waiting, or there's a game that you're not as interested in, whereas with the way this format is as well, I think it's being run off really, really well. So like that, you've really enjoyed games last weekend, you're still mulling over them, and then you've another one coming up on Friday. It's really, it's keeping a real keen interest in it. For me anyway, I'm finding that I'm really enjoying all the games being played off, and I'm enjoying the group stages as well, like the way that they're bundled together. So I think sometimes just a change, a shift in how we do things as well can reinvigorate no more than within a team. I think it's reinvigorating the spectators and people who follow it as well. I think the intensity with which the games are being played, maybe with teams just like they've been on a leash for months and they've been let off the leash, I think that that's really adding to the spectacle of the game. I mean, I was just, when I was looking at the matches over the weekend, I was thinking they just all seem so fast, and you know, maybe I just missed it, but I just feel like there's just such an intensity in the game. I feel like the tackling, the pass, and like Michelle said, even the speed with which Waterford were running against Dublin, you know, I just find that maybe we really missed it and we're just enjoying appreciating it all the more, but it just seems like it's all very exciting. And yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I'm really enjoying being hit with so many games on the weekends, and you're only over them and you're getting ready for the next bunch of games. And, you know, it's great. And it's no more, like Michelle said, it's not just with the ladies, with the men's as well. And like the men's been straight back to knockout. And I don't know, it's just all so exciting. And maybe, like I said, maybe the winter months as well, people are looking for stuff to do. You don't have as much. Nice to sit in on the weekends and have these games to watch. You know, we're used to having them in the summer where maybe people are out and busier, and you know, in another sense it's not, probably not for the players, but all disagree with the conditions that they're having to play in. But again, for us on our couches watching it, it's a great time of year as well to have so much choice, you know.
Absolutely, brace yourself because there's more coming at the weekend. Kiva, do you know what's a great place to finish is with your good self, and I want you to remind us just how excited you are about what's coming up over the weekend, because I can see it's just written all over your face, and you actually, do you know what, you give me that buzz when you talk about it with such enthusiasm. Do you feel that you actually can feel the knockout sense of what's coming down the tracks this weekend, and obviously with the Armagh head on as well, it's fantastic.
Yeah, look, I think it's as the girls say there, it's the appreciation. You know, the players appreciate being back. You know, sometimes when you're in a treadmill of doing what you always do, you kind of think, oh, well, this is always going to happen. And not until you get to the latter stages, you know, like ourselves, maybe, you know, you think, oh, this won't go on forever. So I think people are starting to take stock and appreciate people watching the games, you know, and people playing the games. So I have to say, look, I am super excited. I plan my days. It used to be when I eat, but now it's when am I going to watch football. So yeah, it's great.
Enjoy. Absolutely fantastic to have you on board again, folks. Michelle Ryan, Denise Masterson, and Caoimhe Morgan. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the football, stay safe, and thanks a million for coming on.
Thanks, Jackie.